Good evening, and welcome to Sue's Barbie Love Halloween special. The doll I'm going to show you while I'm talking about this is the 1994 Polynesian Barbie. I just got her at a flea market. I've already sort of opened her, so I'm just going to pull her out of the box. Here she is, and isn't she a beaut? Love this grass skirt. Oh yes, I love my dolls, and I love my scary stories. We're going to be talking about stories that came from my grandfather. I grew up hearing the story. See, my grandfather was born with a veil over his face. A veil, what does that mean? Well, another word for the veil is a caul. Tonight, we're going to be talking about a scary story that came from my family. It's told to me by my grandfather. He experienced this. My grandmother said she heard but didn't see the things that he saw. You see, my grandfather was born with a veil over his face. A veil over his face. What does that mean? A veil, also known as a caul, goes back many, many centuries. Charles Dickens wrote of the caul in 1849 in his classic David Copperfield. In this story, the caul was auctioned off to be used as a good luck charm for sailors. See, it's believed that the veil or the caul brought good luck, and the sailors, it kept them from drowning. That's one version. There's other versions where the veil or the caul allowed people to see ghosts. If you kept the caul intact and didn't ever lose it, then you didn't see the ghost. But if you didn't keep it, yes, you would be seeing ghosts. What is the veil or the caul? Well, what it is actually is the embryonic sac that can be attached to a child's face. And it still happens even today in 1 in 80,000 births. No wonder we see so many people that see ghosts. Well, my grandfather saw ghosts all the time, and he used to tell me all these stories about them. I'm going to share one with you tonight. My grandmother's a part of this, and she didn't see anything because she was born with the veil. She heard it. So soon after my grandparents were married, they moved into a big 2-story house with his brother and his wife. And they slept in a bedroom, and their bed was near the wall in an big open window. Every night when they went to bed, they would hear this jingling, jangling sound. Well, my grandmother just assumed it was cowbells in the nearby pasture. Didn't think much of it. It was kind of far off and just a slight jingle jangle. Well, as time went on, it got louder and louder. Then, one special night, it got so loud, my grandma jumped up in the bed and looked out the window. In those days, there was no air conditioning or fans, so they had to leave the windows open just to have a little breeze. It was a summer night. And she was just sure that the cow was right next to the window. The jingle jangle was so loud. But my grandpa, he was thinking differently. He knew that didn't sound like a cowbell. No, he didn't, Miss Polynesian. What he thought was, I'm afraid to think what it might be. But slowly and surely he turned away from the window and looked to the far side of the room. And out of the corner of the room came a man floating in midair. He came closer and closer to the bed. My grandma continued to look, the opposite direction, out the window. Where's that cow? Where's that sound? As the man grew closer to the bed, he got right next to my grandfather's bed and disappeared into the floor. My grandpa grabbed my grandma and said, "We're getting out of here." So they left the bedroom. That was the last night they slept in that bedroom. They pulled their mattress out of the bedroom and into the living room. That's where they would sleep the remainder of the time they stayed in this house. The next day, my grandfather was so sure, and by the way, my grandfather was called Papa. So Papa went and pulled up the floorboards. He's like, there's got to be something here. He believed in signs and warnings and things superstitious like that. Plus, he said he was born with a bell. One of his daughters was also born with a bell, and I'll tell you about a story that she told later on. So he pulls up the floorboards and gets a shovel and starts digging in the dirt. The houses were made really close to the ground, so when you couldn't really crawl under them, so very little crawl space. So you had the ground just really close. So when he pulled them up, he was able to dig. So he dug and dug and dug. Did he find anything? So did he find anything in the dirt under those floorboards where the ghost disappeared into the floor? Some silver and even a silver bullet. Yes, most of it is gone, but I did get a few pieces from my grandfather. Shh, don't tell any of my other relatives. So, Polynesian Barbie, are you also aware of the fact that while they lived in that house, I got one more story that goes along with this house. Yes, there was a piano in this house. It was a big two-story house. The house was torn down in the 70s, and it made me so sad because I remember that house, and I didn't even realize until just a few days ago when I was discussing this with my mother that the house where this happened. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember that house. I was sort of drawn to that house all my life, and I was so sad when I seen it torn down for a bank to be put up. Oh well, but I'll tell you another story that happened in that house. They never slept in that bedroom because my grandfather, even though he found something, he didn't like seeing ghosts, even though he could. There was a piano in that house, and some people wanted to purchase the piano. Or maybe it was, I don't remember everything exact. Maybe it was just old and we wanted to get rid of it. Maybe that's what it was. But my grandfather, or Papa, was a carpenter, so he was pretty good at ciphering numbers and measuring and building. So when they went to take the piano out, they would measure the door, measure the piano, plenty of room to get that piano out of that house. But every time they took the piano to the door, it wouldn't go through. They tried over and over and over. That piano would not leave that house. I imagine it was still there when they tore the house down. Of course, I didn't know because it was in the 70s when they tore it down. Maybe that's why they tore it down, because it was haunted. But my grandmother verified that she heard the jingling of the chains. Thought it was a cowbell, but my grandpa said it was the sound of silver. Yes, my grandma would say when I was growing up, "Ah, Bunyan, you were just lucky. You know that was a cowbell. I never saw anything." But they didn't live in that house, and they never slept in that bedroom again. So what do you think? So the story of my grandpa seeing a ghost come out of the corner and disappear down into the floorboards, was that true?
Yes,
How many times did you hear that story?
100 times or more.
Yeah, I grew up hearing that story. He believed it with all his heart that it was true. Grandma, she heard it, right?
Yes,
But she never saw it because she wasn't born with what over her face?
Well,
A veil. Yes. Some other famous people that's been known to be born with a veil over the face is Sigmund Freud. I have this written down. Sigmund Freud, Alexander the Great, Charlemagne, who was an emperor in 764 to 814 over much of Western Europe, Napoleon. Those are a few people that have been known to be born with a veil over their face. And my grandpa was also one. Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe. And don't miss tomorrow night. We're going to have a different story. Oh, yes, we are.